Ambassador Park Jin-woo stepped into the massive council chamber, his boots echoing against the polished crystal floor. The sound seemed to mock him in the vast space that could hold 1,000,000 beings. Day had held the fate of humanity. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien engineering. Floating platforms surrounded a central speaking area, each one designed for different species. The insectoid hive minds clustered on platforms filled with sweet-smelling gases. The energy beings of the Void Collective flickered like living lightning on their containment fields. And above them all, the ancient stone giants of the first builders sat motionless, their eyes like burning stars. Jinwoo had been coming here for 5 years, ever since Earth appointed him as their primary ambassador. He'd walked these halls with pride, believing humanity finally had a voice among the stars. Today felt different. The whispers had been growing louder in recent months. Fear, resentment, jealousy. Counselor Vexstar descended from his platform, his massive form casting shadows across the floor. The hegemony leader stood 12 feet tall, his blue-scaled hide marked with the ritual scars of 100 battles. 4 yellow eyes studied Jinwoo like a predator examining prey. Human Vexstar's voice boomed through the chamber's translation. Matrix, your species stands accused of violating the expansion accords. Jinwoo kept his expression neutral, though his heart was racing. Behind him, his aide, Kim Da-hai, activated her recording device. Every word of this session would be transmitted back to Earth in real time. What specific violations? Jinwoo asked, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. A holographic display materialized above them, showing the Orion spiral arm. Red dots marked human colonies. Green showed council territories, and yellow indicated disputed zones. The red dots seemed to pulse like a spreading infection. In the past decade, humanity has established 43 new colonies, Vexstar continued. Your military fleet has grown by 300%. Your trade networks bypass established council routes. You act as if the galaxy belongs to you. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Jinwoo recognized the voices. Species that had once welcomed human aid now spoke against them. The Zephyrians, whose trade routes humanity protected from pirates. The Crystalline Collective, whose homeworld humans had saved from asteroid bombardment. Even the peaceful Verdani, whose agricultural crisis human scientists had solved just 2 years ago. Every colony was established in unclaimed space, Jinwoo replied firmly. Our military expansion was approved by this very council after the Void Reaper attacks. We followed every protocol, filed every required document. Following protocols is not the issue, interrupted another counselor. This one belonged to the Silicon Mines. Artificial intelligences housed in sleek robotic bodies. The issue is intent. Humanity displays aggressive territorial behavior consistent with species, classified as conquest-oriented. Jinwoo felt his anger rising. Conquest-oriented. The same classification given to the extinct Dominion Empire. It's the warmongering species that had nearly destroyed half the galaxy before the Council stopped them.
Oh.
Our expansion is peaceful, Jinwoo said. We've never attacked another council member. Our colonies trade freely with all species. Our military exists to protect, not conquer. Protect, Vexstar repeated, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Yes, we've noticed how eagerly humanity offers protection. The aquatic Dominion's merchant fleets now fly under human escort. The Keeper Collective requests human engineers for their infrastructure projects. Everywhere we look, species turn to humanity first, not the Council. The truth hit Jinwoo like a physical blow. This wasn't about expansion or military buildup. This was about influence. In 30 short years, humanity had gone from an unknown species to one of the most trusted names in the galaxy. Other civilizations asked for human doctors, human teachers, human protectors. The Council's authority was being challenged not by force, but by choice. The human species has grown too bold, Vexstar declared, his 4 eyes gleaming with contempt. Your military expansion threatens galactic peace. Your colonies spread like a plague across our territories. Jinwoo's jaw clenched. For 30 years, humanity had served the Council faithfully. When the Void Reapers attacked the outer systems, human ships had formed the front line. Commander Lee Minho had died ramming his destroyer into a Reaper dreadnought to save a council world. When the plague struck the Verdani homeworld, Dr. Park Soo-jin had worked 80-hour days for 3 months to develop a cure. When civil war threatened to tear apart the Zephyrian Republic, human diplomat Kim Hae-young had mediated peace talks for 6 grueling months. Human soldiers had died protecting alien worlds they'd never seen. Human scientists had solved crises that threatened entire systems. Human diplomats had prevented countless wars through patience and wisdom. Therefore, Vexstar continued, humanity will surrender 60% of your fleet within 1 solar cycle. All human colonies beyond Sector 7 will be evacuated. Your species will accept permanent monitoring by Council observers. The chamber fell silent. Ginwoo felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on him. 60% of their fleet would leave Earth defenseless. Evacuating the outer colonies would abandon millions of humans to whatever dangers lurked in unprotected space. And permanent monitoring meant the end of human independence forever. Behind him, Kim Da-hai whispered urgently into her communicator. Transmitting every word back to Earth, he could imagine the chaos erupting in government buildings across the globe. President Lee So-young would be calling emergency sessions. Fleet Admiral Kim Do-haen would be calculating defense scenarios. Every human leader would be asking the same question. How did it come to this? And if we refuse? Jinwoo asked, his voice steady, despite the rage building inside him. Then humanity will be expelled from the Council and declared a rogue species. Your trade privileges will be revoked. Your protected status will end. Any species may attack human territories without Council intervention. The threat was clear. Submit to permanent subjugation or face the galaxy alone. Vexstar was betting that humanity would choose survival over dignity. He was betting that humans were just another species that would bow down when faced with overwhelming force. Ginwoo nodded slowly. I request 48 hours to deliver your terms to my government. Granted. Do not test our patience, human. As Jinwoo walked from the chamber, he felt something shift inside him. For 30 years, humanity had tried to prove themselves worthy of a seat at this table. They'd followed rules written by species who saw them as useful servants. Nothing more. They'd accepted junior status, believing it was the price of admission to galactic civilization. But maybe they'd been asking the wrong question all along. Maybe the question wasn't whether humanity deserved a place in the Council. Maybe the question was whether the Council deserved humanity. The crystalline towers of Nexus Prime stretched endlessly into the purple sky as Jinwoo's transport carried him away from the chamber. Somewhere among those towers, in boardrooms and private clubs, Council members were probably celebrating. They thought they'd put the upstart humans in their place. They had no idea what they'd just unleashed. The emergency klaxons echoed through the halls of the United Earth Assembly as president. Lee So-young strode toward the podium. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled from the sleepless nights spent on encrypted calls with colony governors, fleet commanders, and intelligence chiefs. The weight of 8 billion human lives rested on her shoulders. The assembly hall buzzed with tension. Representatives from every nation, every colony, every human settlement had gathered in person or by hologram. Some faces showed anger, others fear, but all shared the same grim determination that had carried humanity from cave dwellers to star travelers. Behind So-young, massive holographic displays showed the real-time status of human civilizations scattered across the galaxy. Green dots represented secure colonies, yellow showed evacuation in progress, and red marked territories under immediate threat. The display looked like a living organism, pulsing and shifting as millions of people prepared for the unthinkable. What is 7? Hours ago, So-young began, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. Ambassador Park Jin-woo was delivered an ultimatum by the Galactic Council. They demand we surrender 60% of our fleet, abandon our outer colonies, and accept permanent alien oversight of our civilization. Angry shouts erupted from the assembly. Representative Kim Dong-woo from the Mars colonies slammed his fist on his desk. They want to make us slaves in our own territories. Order, So-young called out. The Council has shown us their true nature. They see us as servants, not partners. For 30 years we've bled for their causes, died for their protection, and solved their problems. In return, they offer us chains disguised as membership. The displays behind her shifted, showing footage of human heroics across the galaxy. Commander Park Jimin's sacrifice at the Battle of Vega 9, where he'd rammed his cruiser into a Void Reaper mothership to save 2 million crystalline collective civilians. Dr. Seo Yun, he working through 3 straight days of chemical bombardment to treat wounded soldiers on Kepler-4 for 2B. Captain Nam Subin, leading the evacuation of 30,000 refugees from the hegemony civil war. Today, we choose freedom over chains, Sa-Young declared. Operation Exodus begins immediately. Within minutes of her speech, the largest coordinated movement in human history began. Across 37 star systems, humanity started coming. Home Admiral Choi Min-ho stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, Incheon Rising, watching as his massive fleet prepared to depart the Andorian sector. The ship was a beast of human engineering, 2 kilometers of armored hull, bristling with plasma cannons and missile pods. Its hangar bays held enough fighters to level a small moon. "Sir, civilian evacuation is complete," reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ha-jin. 437 transport ships are ready to move. Min-ho nodded grimly. Behind those numbers were 3 million human colonists who'd built lives on the frontier worlds. Farmers who'd turned barren planets into gardens. Engineers who'd constructed cities and asteroid belts. Children who'd been born under alien suns and knew no other home. "All ships maintain formation," Min-ho announced, across the fleet, channel. "We're going home to real home." The convoy began its journey, a river of light stretching across space. But they weren't alone. Alien ships shadowed them from safe distances, some curious, others hostile. The hegemony patrol vessels kept pace just outside weapons range, waiting for any sign of weakness. Admiral, his communications officer, Major Park Seojin, looked up from his console with concern. "We're receiving multiple distress calls from civilian ships. The aliens aren't letting them go peacefully." Min-ho's jaw tightened. What kind of interference? Customs inspections that turn into strip searches? Mysterious mechanical failures in alien ports? Some of our people are being detained on fake charges. The Admiral's hands clenched into fists. The Council was showing its true face now that humanity was leaving. They were making the exodus as painful as possible, hoping to break human resolve. "Signal the fleet," Min-ho ordered. "Any ship that interferes with human evacuation will be considered hostile." Light years away on Kepler, Station Dr. Han Yujin supervised the most important evacuation of her career. The station housed the galaxy's largest medical research facility, where human scientists had developed cures for 17 major diseases, created new surgical techniques that had saved billions of lives, and pushed the boundaries of medical knowledge. "Download everything," she ordered her team of 40 researchers. "Every file, every research note, every experimental result. Our work continues, but under human authority." Her assistant, Dr. Kim Ji-young, looked up from her datapad with worry. "Doctor, the Verdani Medical Council is begging us to leave the cancer research. They say their people will die without it." Eugène felt her heart break a little. The Verdani were peaceful, plant-like beings who'd welcomed human researchers with open arms. Their cancer rates had dropped by 90% thanks to human medical advances. But the Council had made its choice. Package everything related to Verdani physiology, she decided. We'll transmit it to their government directly once we're clear of Council space. The politicians made this mess, not the innocent people. As her team worked frantically to secure 30 years of medical research, alien security forces arrived at the station. The silicon-based construct enforcers moved with mechanical precision, their red optical sensors scanning everything. Han Yujin, their leader, spoke through a translation device. "By order of the Medical Council, you will surrender all research materials developed using Council resources." Yujin stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by the 8-foot-tall robot. "This research was conducted by human scientists using human methodology. The only Council contribution was allowing us to work here." Negative. All research conducted on Council territory belongs to the Council. Then you can keep the territory, Yujin replied coldly, keeping our minds. The tension was broken by Yujin's security chief, Captain Lee Taeho. He stepped between the doctor and the constructs, his hand resting casually on his plasma pistol. Behind him, 20 human marines took defensive positions. Gentlemen, Taeho said politely, the doctor is very busy. Perhaps you could schedule this discussion for after we've left. The constructs calculated the odds and stepped aside. They might be stronger individually, but human soldiers had a reputation for being absolutely vicious when protecting their people. Back on Earth, the communication networks were overwhelmed with messages from across the galaxy. Foreign Minister Kang Hae-won worked around the clock, coordinating humanity's response to desperate pleas from former allies. Minister, her aide commander, Park Young-sik, handed her another priority message. The Zephyrian Prime Minister is requesting immediate talks. Their trade routes are being hit by pirates every day now that our patrols have been withdrawn. Kang Hae-won reviewed the message, feeling a pang of sympathy. The Zephyrians were decent people who'd treated humans fairly. But they'd stood silent. When the Council delivered its ultimatum, she activated the quantum communicator, and the bird-like form of Prime Minister Veltar appeared in hologram. His normally bright plumage was dull with stress. Minister Kang, please reconsider, Veltar pleaded. The bloody Nebula pirates destroyed another 3 cargo vessels yesterday. Our economy cannot survive without human protection. We wish the Zephyrians well, Kang Hae-won replied, keeping her voice polite but final. But our protection was conditional on Council membership. That relationship has ended. But surely you understand, we had no choice in the Council's decision. Everyone has choices, Prime Minister. Your species chose to remain silent when humanity was threatened. We respect that choice, but we cannot protect those who will not stand with us. The hologram flickered out, leaving Kang Hae-won alone with her thoughts. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy as species that had relied on human protection suddenly found themselves vulnerable. On Nexus Prime, the Council chambers erupted in chaos as reports flooded in. Human colonies were emptying. Overnight, human fleets were withdrawing from combat zones. Human scientists were taking their research and leaving. Human diplomats were closing embassies and tearing up treaties. This is impossible, shouted the Aquatic Dominion representative, her tentacles writhing with agitation. No species abandons established territories so quickly. Councillor Vextar stood at the center of the chaos, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. Reports were staggering. Humanity wasn't just leaving, they were taking everything with them. Every piece of technology, every trained expert, every alliance they'd built outside Council oversight. They'll be back within a year, Vextar assured his colleagues, though his voice carried less certainty than before. No species can survive. Outside our protection, privately, he was beginning to wonder. The humans weren't acting like a defeated species begging for mercy. They were acting like a civilization that had finally decided to stop playing by someone else's rules. How wrong he was. General Nam Tae-han gripped the railing of his battlecruiser's command deck as explosions lit up the darkness of space before them. The Soul's pride hung in the shadow of a dead asteroid, sensors recording every moment of the massacre unfolding just 30,000 kilometers away. The Void Reapers had come in force this time, as their bioships moved like living nightmares through space, writhing masses of organic armor and plasma weaponry that pulsed with alien intelligence. Each Reaper vessel was grown rather than built, their hulls rippling with muscles that could reshape themselves mid-battle against them. The Galactic Council's Third Fleet looked like children playing with toys. Admiral Kekstar is clustering his heavy cruisers again, observed Commander Park Mi-jin, Tae-hyen's tactical officer. Her voice carried the frustration of a professional watching amateurs bungle a job. The Reapers are going to flank him in 30 seconds. Tae-hyen watched the alien fleet through his tactical display. The Council ships moved in rigid formations, each species following their own doctrine without coordination. The insectoid hive ships favored swarm tactics, but the massive stone giants of the first builders preferred heavy bombardment from range. The energy beings of the Void Collective flickered unpredictably across the battlefield. sometimes helping, sometimes hindering their own allies. It was chaos. Beautiful, deadly chaos that the Void Reapers exploited with surgical precision. There, Lieutenant Yoon Ji-hai pointed at her sensor readings. 3 Reaper destroyers are moving to hit the Council's flank, if they coordinated. A crossfire pattern now, they could catch the Reapers in a kill box. But the Council fleet didn't coordinate. The Hegemony dreadnoughts continued their frontal assault, while the Crystalline Collective ships moved off on their own mission. The Reapers slipped through the gap like water through a broken dam. The Council's flagship Eternal Harmony shuddered under bioplasma fire. Its shields flickered and died as acid weapons ate through its hull plating. Secondary explosions bloomed along its superstructure. "Sir, the Council fleet is requesting assistance," reported Lieutenant Yoon Ji-hai, her voice tight with professional concern. Taehan watched another Council cruiser die in a ball of green fire, when 2 years ago he would have charged in without hesitation. Human tactical doctrine could have turned this battle around in minutes. Cross-firing destroyers, coordinated fighter strikes, adaptive formation changes. All the techniques that had made human fleets legendary across the galaxy. Negative. He said quietly. "We are no longer Council members, not our fight." The words tasted bitter, but they were true. The Council had made their choice when they demanded humanity's submission. Now they could live with the consequences. "No, the fleet," Taehan ordered. "We withdraw to Observation Point Beta. Let the recorder drones get everything." As the human ships pulled back, the Void Reapers finished their work. The Eternal Harmony broke apart under concentrated fire, its crew of 3,000 dying in the vacuum of space. The surviving Council ships fled in disorder, abandoning their dead to the cold stars. 2 years had passed since humanity's exodus, and the galaxy was learning what it meant to lose Earth's children. Unvorthan Prime. The agricultural domes that had fed 12 billion plant-like beings for a generation were failing. Chief Administrator Korlev stood in Dome 7, watching the genetically modified crops wither, despite perfect atmospheric conditions. The human engineer who designed these systems had been named Park Sun-woo. Korlev remembered him clearly, a young man with calloused hands and patient, as who'd spent 3 years teaching local technicians how to maintain the delicate ecosystem inside each dome. "The filtration systems are too complex," Park had warned during his final briefing. "You need trained specialists to monitor the bacterial balance, and a mistake and the whole food chain collapses." But the Vorthan Council had dismissed Park's warnings as human paranoia. Why pay for expensive human consultants when local workers could handle simple maintenance? Now Korlev understood. The domes weren't just buildings, they were living systems that required constant adjustment. The bacterial filters that processed nitrogen had become contaminated. The pollinating insects were dying from mysterious diseases. Even the soil itself was becoming toxic. Administrator, his aide Velamon approached with another datapad full of bad news. "The protein synthesis labs in Dome 12 have completely shut down. We're looking at total crop failure within 6 months." Korlev felt his photosynthetic skin cells dim with despair. The Vorthons had sent 17 urgent messages to human space, begging for help. Every message went unanswered. Perhaps Velamon suggested hesitantly, "We could offer the humans compensation. Mining rights to our lithium deposits?" "They don't need our lithium anymore," Korlev replied bitterly. "Their new allies in the Ironforge Commonwealth have more resources than they know what to do with." The truth was painful but simple. Vorthines had nothing to offer that humanity couldn't get elsewhere. When the Council forced humanity to choose between dignity and membership, the Vorthins had stayed silent. They were paying the price for their cowardice. Meanwhile, in the lawless reaches of the Centauri trade route, Captain Rexfer of the Bloody Nebula Syndicate was having the best year of his career. His pirate fleet had grown from 12 ships to over 60 as desperate criminals and mercenaries flocked to join him. Another merchant convoy approaching from the Zephyrian Republic, reported his tactical officer. "Looks like they're carrying rare earth metals," Rexfer grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. His species, the Voidstalkers, had evolved as pack hunters in the darkness between stars. Piracy came naturally to them. "Any escort ships?" he asked. "Negative, Captain. Just cargo haulers and a single Zephyrian patrol craft." 2 years ago, that convoy would have been protected by human destroyers. The humans had patrolled these trade routes with ruthless efficiency, their ships appearing seemingly from nowhere to obliterate pirate vessels. Rexfer had lost 3 ships to human patrols in a single month, but the humans were gone now, and the Council's remaining forces were spread too thin to maintain effective patrols. The galaxy had become a hunter's paradise. "Signal the fleet," Rexfer ordered. "Standard intimidation pattern. See what they're willing to pay for safe passage." As his ships moved to intercept the convoy, Rexfer reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The old order was crumbling, and predators like him were filling the vacuum. The Council had thought they were punishing humanity by forcing them out. Instead, it punished everyone else. In the free city of New Geneva, built on a rogue planet, drifting between star systems, President Lee Soyoung addressed the inaugural session of the Terran Commonwealth Assembly. Representatives from 43 human colonies sat alongside. Delegates from 12 non-human species that had chosen to align with humanity rather than the Council. The assembly hall was smaller than the Council chambers on Nexus Prime, buzzed with the energy of genuine cooperation. Here, every voice mattered. Every species contributed according to their abilities. 2 years ago, Soyoung began, "We were told that humanity needed the Council's protection. We were told we needed their approval to thrive among the stars. Today, our colonies prosper, our people are free, and our future belongs to us." Assembly erupted in applause. In the gallery, Captain Kim Du-Hayen sat with his crew from the exploration vessel New Horizon. They had just returned from first contact with the singing crystals of Andromeda, species that communicated through harmonic resonance and had vast knowledge of quantum mechanics. The Commonwealth now includes 47 human worlds and the territories of our 12 allied species, Soyoung continued. Our combined fleet numbers over 800 vessels. Our research facilities have made breakthroughs in faster-than-light travel, medical nanotechnology, and quantum computing. She paused to let that sink in. In 2 years of independence, humanity had achieved more scientific progress than in the previous decade under Council oversight. But most importantly, Soyoung concluded, we've proven that civilization doesn't require submission to authority. It requires cooperation between equals. The applause this time was thunderous. In the human sections, families who'd lost members in Council wars wept with pride. In the alien sections, species that had been marginalized by the Council's hierarchy felt hope for the first time in generations. Back on Nexus Prime, the Council chambers had become a place of constant crisis meetings. Emergency sessions were called weekly as reports flooded in of failing infrastructure, successful pirate raids. In member species considering withdrawal, Councillor Vexstar stood before a half-empty chamber, little many seats abandoned by species that had either been conquered or had chosen to leave. His blue scales had lost their luster, and his 4 eyes showed the strain of 2 years of constant disasters. "The Aquatic Dominion has formally requested human assistance with their kelp forest plague," reported the Secretary General, her voice, barely audible over the arguing delegates. "Denied," Vexstar snapped. "We do not negotiate with rogue species." "But sir," the Secretary General persisted, 17 billion aquatic citizens face starvation if the plague isn't stopped. The humans developed the original antifungal treatments, and the Aquatic Dominion should have considered that before allowing the humans to leave. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the truth that Vexstar refused to admit. The Council hadn't allowed humanity to leave. They'd tried to force humanity into submission and lost. Now the galaxy was paying the price for their arrogance, but pride prevented them from admitting their mistake. In the shadows of the chamber, alien intelligence. Officers quietly recorded every word. Some worked for the Commonwealth, others for the growing number of species considering their own exodus from the failing Council. Price for their arrogance. But pride prevented them from admitting their mistake. In the shadows of the chamber, alien intelligence officers quietly recorded every word. Some worked for the Commonwealth, others for the growing number of species considering their own exodus from the failing Council. The foundation was cracking. and everyone could hear it breaking. Captain Songkite pressed his face against the reinforced viewport of his reconnaissance ship, watching one of the most beautiful and heartbreaking sights in the galaxy. The Crystalline Collective's entire fleet was departing Nexus Prime, and their ships looked like living jewels against the star-filled darkness. Each crystalline vessel was grown rather than built. Their hulls formed from living crystal that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The light wasn't just decoration, it was their language. Right now, the entire fleet was singing a song of farewell that painted rainbow colors across space. "Look at that," whispered Lieutenant Park the Jinn from her communications station, broadcasting their memory songs. "They're telling the galaxy exactly why they're leaving." Song Kite activated his translation matrix and listened to the haunting melody. The crystals sang of betrayal, of promises broken, of a council that had grown deaf to the voices of its own members. They sang of human friends who had stood with them during the Great Resonance Crisis, only to be cast out like criminals. "One leaves," Park the Jinn muttered, updating her log. "That's 6 major species in the past year." The numbers were staggering. First, the Aquatic Dominion had withdrawn after the Council failed to protect their ocean worlds from Void Reaper attacks. Song Kite had been there, watching from the shadows as bioships descended through blue-green seas to harvest entire underwater cities. The Council fleet had arrived 3 days too late, their excuse being logistical difficulties. Everyone knew the truth. Without human tactical coordination, the Council couldn't respond to threats fast enough. Their different species used incompatible communication systems, conflicting military doctrines, and centuries-old territorial disputes that slowed every decision to a crawl. Next came the Silicon Mines, the artificial intelligences who had served as the galaxy's information network for 2,000 years. Their withdrawal had been devastating suddenly. Interstellar communications slowed to a crawl as quantum relay stations went offline. Trade routes that depended on AI navigation became unreliable. Even basic weather prediction failed on dozens of worlds. The reason? Their trade networks had collapsed without human maintenance. Humans had been the only species with both the technical skill and the patience to work with AI consciousness. When humanity left, the Silicon Mines found themselves increasingly isolated from the organic species they'd tried to serve. "Captain," Park the Jinn looked up from her sensor readings. "I'm detecting unusual gravitational distortions near the Hegemony fleet." Songkite swung his telescope toward the massive Hegemony vessels that still orbited Nexus Prime. These were the Council's most loyal supporters, reptilian warriors who valued strength above all else. Their ships were brutal things, all armor plating and weapon batteries designed for close-range combat. But something was wrong. The lead dreadnought was listing to starboard, venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Its escort ships were moving to assist, but their formations looked sloppy, unprofessional. "Sir, I'm picking up distress signals," Park the Jinn reported. "Sounds like they've had another reactor malfunction. That's the 3rd one this month." Song Kite nodded grimly. The Hegemony had always depended on human engineers to maintain their fusion reactors. Hegemony warriors were excellent fighters, but they considered technical work beneath their honor. Now, their ships were literally falling apart. "Any word on casualties?" he asked. 200 dead, 500 injured? They're requesting emergency technical support from anyone willing to help, and finding none, I'd bet. Songkite had seen this pattern repeated across the galaxy. Species that had treated human experts as disposable servants now found themselves unable to maintain the technology they'd taken for granted. His comm system chimed with an incoming message from Earth. Songkite's ship was part of a network of human vessels quietly observing the Council's collapse. Every piece of intelligence would be vital for the Commonwealth's future planning. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Kim Du-hyen sat in the Situation Room deep beneath the Capitol, surrounded by holographic displays showing the current state of galactic civilization. It wasn't a pretty picture. "The Council's military has lost 70% of its strength," reported his intelligence chief, Commander Seo Minru. "Half of that from species withdrawals, the other half from equipment failures and tactical disasters. Duhayan studied the tactical maps with professional interest. Red zones marked areas now controlled by pirates or hostile forces. Yellow showed regions where the Council's authority was contested. Green indicated stable Council territory, and there wasn't much green left. Economic situation? Yes. Complete free fall. The galactic credit has lost 80% of its value. Core worlds are rationing basic supplies because the trade networks have collapsed. Some planets are reverting to barter systems. The irony wasn't lost on Duhayan. The Council had forced humanity out to prevent their economic disruption, only to watch their economy collapse without human participation. Sir Commander CO reported, receiving another diplomatic request from Nexus Prime. They're offering to restore our original membership status. Duhayan didn't even look up from his reports. Territorial restrictions? They're still demanding we limit colony expansion and accept Council oversight of our military development. Duhayan laughed, but there was no humor in it. They still don't understand. We're not the same species that begged for their approval 30 years ago. The truth was evident in every intelligence report. The Commonwealth now controlled more territory than humanity had ever held as Council members. Their technology had advanced by leaps and bounds without Council restrictions. Their military was stronger, their economy more stable, their people more prosperous. What should I tell their ambassador? CO asked. Tell him we'll consider talks when they're ready to treat us as equals, not subjects. Meanwhile, in the Epsilon sector, the nightmare that had haunted the galaxy for centuries was unfolding again. The Void Reapers had grown bold enough to attack core Council worlds, their bioships swarming through space like a plague of mechanical locusts. Commander? Li Hei-young watched the slaughter from her stealth frigate, her crew silent with horror. As the Reapers descended on Nexus Beta, the planet held 12 billion souls across 7 different species. It had been considered untouchable. Protected by the most advanced defense systems in the galaxy, those defenses lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Reaper bioships moved with organic fluidity, their hulls rippling and reshaping to absorb weapons. Fire acid projectors dissolved Council battleships like sugar in rain. Boarding tentacles punched through armor plating to disgorge. Nightmare creatures that hunted through corridors with predatory intelligence. Sir, her tactical officer whispered, a single human battle group could have stopped this. Our plasma lance technology cuts through Reaper bioarmor like tissue paper.
Ow.
Lee Helm knew he was right. Human ships carried weapons specifically designed to counter Reaper regeneration. Human tactics focused on mobility and precision strikes that prevented the bioships from adapting. A Commonwealth battle group would have ended this assault in hours, but the Commonwealth was busy elsewhere. Their fleets were exploring new galaxies, establishing trade with previously unknown species, and protecting their chosen allies. Council had made it clear that humanity wasn't welcome. Now they could face the consequences alone. Record everything, Lee ordered. Command needs to see exactly how far the Council's defenses have degraded. As Nexus Beta burned below them, Lee couldn't help but think about the children down there. Innocent beings who would die because their leaders. Pride had driven away the galaxy's best protectors. The Commonwealth's response came 12 hours later. Broadcast on all frequencies, the Terran Commonwealth offers humanitarian aid to all. Refugees from Nexus Beta. Evacuation ships are being dispatched to neutral territories. Any being seeking sanctuary will be welcomed, regardless of species or former allegiance. It was a masterful move. The Commonwealth couldn't intervene militarily without starting a war. But they could show the galaxy exactly who the real heroes were. While the Council argued about jurisdiction and proper procedures, human ships were already pulling survivors from the wreckage. Back on Nexus Prime, the Council chambers had become a tomb of former glory. Half the seats stood empty, their former occupants either dead, fled, or withdrawn from the organization. Those who remained huddled together like survivors of a shipwreck, desperately trying to save something from the wreckage of Galactic. Civilization Counselor Vexstar stood at the center of the chaos, his blue scales now gray with stress and his 4 eyes dim with exhaustion. Around him, the remaining council members argued in a dozen languages about what to do next. We must negotiate with the humans. insisted the representative from the Peaceful Garden Collective. They're the only ones with the military strength. To stop the Reapers? Never, Vexstar roared. We do not negotiate with rogue species. The humans are criminals who abandon their duties. But even as he spoke, Vexstar knew the truth. The humans hadn't abandoned anything. They'd been driven away by the Council's own arrogance and fear. Now they were thriving in independence while the galaxy burned around them. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Earth's children were not mercenaries to be hired when convenient and dismissed when troublesome. They were a force of nature, driven by principles that couldn't be bought or intimidated. And they had found their own path among the stars, leaving the Council to face the darkness alone. Ambassador Kim Ji-hoon stepped through the airlock of his diplomatic shuttle onto what had once been the most powerful space station in the galaxy. Nexus Prime looked like a dying beast now, its massive corridors echoing with emptiness and the distant sound. The journey to the Council chambers took him through sections that had been abandoned entirely. Storefronts stood, empty behind shattered crystal windows. The magnificent gardens where dozens of species had once mingled in peaceful trade were now withered and dark. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on walls that had once gleamed with the promise of galactic unity. Ji-hoon's escort. A nervous hegemony guard named Kexaloom kept glancing over his shoulder as they walked. Forgive the conditions, Ambassador. We've had to concentrate our remaining security forces in the essential areas. How many people are left on the station? Ji-hoon asked. Perhaps 2 million, down from 30 million at our peak. Kexval's voice carried the weight of civilizational collapse. Most evacuated after the last Reaper attack. The bioships came. Within 1,000 kilometers of breaching the outer hull, past a memorial wall covered with holographic images of the dead. Ji-hoon stopped before one image that made his heart clench. His sister, Captain Kim Min-young, who had died 3 years ago defending the aquatic Dominion homeworld from pirates. She'd been leading a humanitarian mission when the raiders attacked. Her last transmission had been simple: protecting the innocent. Tell Mom I love her. The Council had given her a posthumous medal. Then they'd demanded humanity surrender their independence. The Council chamber itself was a shadow of its former glory. Half the seats were empty, their former occupants either, conquered by the Void Reapers or departed for greener pastures. The crystalline architecture was cracked in places. Battle damage from the Reaper assault that had nearly destroyed the station. Counselor Vexstar approached from across the chamber, and Ji-hoon barely recognized him. The proud warrior who had once demanded humanity's submission now bore deep scars across his blue-scaled face. One of his 4 eyes was clouded with blindness. His movements were stiff, favoring his left side where Reaper acid had eaten through his armor during the last attack. Ambassador Kim Vexter's voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Thank you for coming. We did not expect you to accept our invitation. Ji-hoon studied the broken alien leader with professional detachment. There was no triumph in this moment, only sadness for the waste of it all. The Commonwealth values dialogue, Counselor, even with former adversaries. They walked to the center of the chamber where a small holographic display showed the current state of galactic civilization. It was a map painted in tragedy. Red zones marked Reaper-controlled territory. Yellow showed contested systems, and a pitiful amount of green indicated stable Council space. The Council formally apologizes for our ... previous misunderstanding. Vexstar began, the words clearly painful for him to speak. We recognize that our demands were ... excessive. We offer humanity full restoration to the Council, with expanded voting rights, territorial guarantees, and complete autonomy over your military forces. Ji-hoon felt no satisfaction in this moment, only sadness for what might have been. Behind him, Major Lim Soo-jin monitored her tactical display, watching for any signs of Reaper activity in the system. The Commonwealth had learned never to trust. In others' protection, we also offered joint leadership of the remaining Council forces. Vexstar continued desperately. Human commanders would have complete authority over tactical decisions. Your technology, your expertise, we need it all. Terran Commonwealth appreciates your offer, Ji-hoon replied formally, his voice carrying across the nearly empty chamber. However, We must respectfully decline. The remaining council members erupted in panicked voices. The insectoid hive queen clicked frantically in her native language while her translator struggled to keep up. But the survival of civilization itself is at stake. Without human protection, we face extinction. But you must understand, Vextar's composure finally cracked completely. The Void Reapers control 40% of former council space. Our economy has collapsed. Our member species abandon us daily. Just yesterday, the Peaceful Garden Collective announced their withdrawal. Now we're down to 8 member species from the original 47. Jihoon watched the alien leaders break down. With professional sympathy, Vextar wasn't evil, just proud and short-sighted. He genuinely believed that forcing humanity into submission was the right choice for galactic stability. The Reapers attacked 3 core worlds last month, Vextar continued, his voice breaking. Billions died while we watched helplessly. Our fleets can't coordinate without human tactical networks. Our defenses can't adapt without human innovation. We're dying, Ambassador. Slowly, painfully, publicly dying. Behind Jihoon, Major Lim Sujin's tactical display showed a very different picture. The Commonwealth's borders were secure, protected by the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. Their 37 member species prospered under human protection. And partnership, not dominion. New colonies were being established monthly in previously unexplored systems. Just last week, the Commonwealth had made first contact with the Harmony Singers, a species of energy beings from the galactic core, who communicated through music. The potential for technological and cultural exchange was enormous. Perhaps Jihoon said quietly, "This experience will teach you to value your next allies appropriately. The Commonwealth wishes the Council well in their struggles." Next allies? Vextar's remaining good eye widened with desperate hope. You mean there might be others? Species powerful enough to help us rebuild? Jihoon's expression softened slightly. Counselor, the galaxy is vast. There are thousands of species beyond your former borders who might be willing to help rebuild galactic civilization. But they'll want to be partners, not subjects. We understand. We've learned from our mistakes. Have you? Jihoon asked gently. Because even now, in your desperation, you're still thinking in terms of what others can do for you, not what you can offer them. The truth hit Vextar like a physical blow. Even in their darkest hour, the Council was still approaching potential allies as supplicants seeking aid, not equals offering partnership. As Jihoon's shuttle departed Nexus Prime, he looked back at the dying capital of galactic civilization through his viewport. The massive space stations that had once buzzed with the activity of 1,000 species were going dark one by one. Evacuation ships streamed away from the system, like refugees fleeing a natural disaster. The Council that had once seemed omnipotent was crumbling under the weight of its own arrogance, and there was nothing humanity could do to save them. Some mistakes were too fundamental to fix. His communication officer, Lieutenant Park Somin, looked up from her console. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Earth. President Lee wants a full debrief as soon as we reach Commonwealth. Space." "Tell her the Council is finished," Jihoon replied. "Whatever rises from its ashes won't be our concern unless they choose to make it so." On Earth, President Lee So-young received the final report in her office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Through her windows, she could see the construction scaffolding around the new Commonwealth fleet yards, where the next generation of exploration vessels was taking shape. The report from Nexus Prime was exactly what she'd expected. The Council's offer was too little, too late. Even if the Commonwealth wanted to help, and public opinion was strongly against it, the Council's problems were too fundamental to solve with military intervention. "Ma'am," her aide commander Jung Minho approached with another datapad. "The Harmony Singers have formally requested Commonwealth membership. They're offering to share their quantum harmonics technology in exchange for protection and cultural exchange." So-young smiled for the first time that day. Approved. "Schedule the integration ceremonies for next month." The Commonwealth continued to grow, welcoming new species who valued partnership over domination. Human colonies stretched across virgin systems, their people free to pursue their destiny without alien oversight. Scientists worked alongside alien researchers to push the boundaries of knowledge. Explorers ventured into unknown regions of space, guided by the principle that the universe belonged to all sentient beings. The Galactic Council had learned too late that some things, once broken, cannot be mended. They had demanded humanity's submission and received humanity's exodus. They had pushed Earth's children away, and humanity had found something infinitely better: true freedom among the stars. In research stations scattered across Commonwealth, space, human, and alien scientists worked together on projects that would have been impossible under Council restrictions. Faster-than-light communication, matter transmission, even experiments in dimensional travel, all pursued freely by minds unshackled from bureaucratic oversight in the outer systems. Exploration fleets made contact with new species weekly. The galaxy was far larger and more diverse than the Council had ever admitted. Many civilizations had deliberately avoided Council space, preferring independence to the safety of membership. Now they welcomed human explorers with curiosity and respect, eager to trade knowledge and resources with a species that approached them as equals. The children of Earth had learned the most important lesson in galactic politics. Sometimes walking away from a bad deal is the best decision you can make. Council had offered them a cage disguised as membership. Humanity had chosen the risks and rewards of freedom in the end. The galaxy discovered that Earth's children didn't need permission to be great. They just needed to be free. The end.